Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault. And you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy
They
there.
got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges for watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their court. The fireworks are not done.
LJ commentary on the case. Dati mihi Anglican race service.
Is that correct?
That's literally not true. Oh, for sake.
Alrighty, welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Thank you very much. We are back. Let's see, where are we back to? I don't even know yet. Let's see. Let's go on. Got 7. There we go. Camera 8, ready to go. Camera 3, it's doing its thing. Put that right there. All right. Now we're getting set up. We're back. Guess what? Young Dolph. We have a verdict in Young Dolph, and I'm not going to take it live. I'm sorry. They did us so dirty on that trial. It was terrible. We do have a verdict for Young Dolph. We also, that looks terrible as well. I have to say, there we go. Fire Girl, handmade by Wendy. Welcome. First in chat today. Congratulations. You, young lady, are sentenced to internet ownership as punishment for being boisterous enough to just blurt out in chat, G! Like G-Unit. I think that's what you were yelling, G-Unit, but you just type G in chat. Congratulations. The win is all yours, and as punishment, we're going to sentence you to internet ownership. You have to fix everything IP-related worldwide, just until we go live again, which is lucky for you, the podcast, in like 3 hours. So, oh my goodness. Let's see.
When are we going to break for lunch?
Buffer chat is boycotting. They want verdict music.
Shame on you, sir.
Oh my goodness. Well, it has been a while.
About to catch a whooping.
It has been I think I'm about to catch a whooping. After only what seems like 7 years of direct and very dull testimony, we have a verdict in the Justin Johnson trial. The accused murderer of young Dolph, after sitting through what must be a new world record length trial. World record in what area? Well, in boredom. It was painfully slow. It was excruciatingly slow. But now, after about 3-4 hours of deliberation, the jury, trying to return the punishment back on the people who inflicted it on them, waiting for 4 hours, is going to come back with a verdict. And if what we saw leading up to this moment is any indication, they'll still be reading it sometime tomorrow. There we go. We have the music. I'm not taking it live. I'm sorry. Do you know how much? Oh my goodness. Let's listen in. Listen. Ears only for you guys.
Have you reached a verdict? You have your own 4-person. If you would stand and read your verdict, please.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in count 2 of the indictment. and we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of convicted felon in possession of a firearm as charged in count 3 of the indictment.
There you go.
Thank you.
Guilty's across the board.
Juror number 1, is that your verdict?
And now as they poll the jury, I'm sorry, I don't have the live stream set up to be able to show you this live.
Juror number 11,
It came in
is that
right
your
as we were
verdict?
starting.
Juror number 14, is that your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
If they
Juror
didn't,
number
I would
17,
lose
is
my
that your
mind.
verdict? Juror
We'll-
number 27.
We'll
is
listen
that
to the
your
jury
verdict?
getting polled really quickly.
Juror number 33, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 25, is
Shook
that your
if I tell
verdict?
you.
Yes.
Juror number 44, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 23, is that your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Juror number 28, is that your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you again for your time and attention to this matter this week. Our system of self-government would not work without your service and sacrifice that you've made. Thanks again for your time and attention. You are excused.
Jury is being excused right now. Box source 1.
And once again, they're
Yep, once again. There's the verdict. So you got it, guilty. You could sort of see it, but I couldn't put it up on the big screen. No surprise in the trial whatsoever. After a long morning trial, that was a fast ending. No reaction at all from the defendant. He pretty much knew what was coming. It was all on video. The whole thing, from like the lead up beforehand, the murder itself, and where he went afterwards. We have the entire day, just in segment at a time. Even when he was in the elevators, we have the video from that. But the judge is going to determine the sentence. I don't know if they're going to do a pre-sentence investigation, which normally can take between 1 to 3 months to complete, or if they just go straight to sentencing on this point. We'll find out and let you guys fill us in chat. All right. That being said, we have to get started on where we need to be right now, which is in the Madden trial, day 4. If we can get day 4 done, which is, I think it's on camera 7. Looks good there. Okay, day 4, camera 7. There we go. Then we can start. It'll be good. Everything will be happy. Somebody's calling in to complain. Let's see, who was it? Hello.
AWOL.
AWOL, are you calling in to complain?
No, I am not. I'm actually calling. This has nothing to do with a trial, but since I love chat in the community, this is just a heads up. I drive trucks in the ports of New Jersey and New York. I pick up containers.
Mm-hmm.
They are potentially having a strike at 12 a.m. Tuesday, aka Monday night. And I spoke to an ILA worker today, and he said, you're not coming to work Tuesday. I could guarantee you that. We're not coming to the negotiation table. And Monday afternoon at around 1 o'clock, don't come back here because it's going to be horrible. Because they're already going to start slowing down to prove the effects.
This could have ripple effects all the way through the holiday season.
Every day that the ports are closed, and it is the East Coast ports and the Gulf ports, California's ILA is a different chapter.
Yeah.
So companies are shipping their goods to California and trucking them over. They're servicing 20 ships a week currently at the East Coast and Gulf ports now.
And Gulf has already got a little bit of issue today, just to slow down. We're back in court in just a minute, so we've got to take a break.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know, so don't worry about fuel. You're fine with fuel, but as far as goods, be prepared.
More good news if the hurricane wasn't enough.
But
now we've got strikes on the
figured
ports.
I had to let people know just in case.
Hey, well, thanks for the update. Good talking to you, my friend. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll see
Later.
you. Bye.
Bye.
You heard it first. The ports might be on strike here real quick. There's nothing like choking off a port, like just cutting off the flow of goods and services, or just goods, which also are needed for services. A port is a stranglehold on the economy. It really is. They have such a strong bargaining position when they go on strike. And you know the other side of it, obviously Pickles not politics, but when they're doing such an important job, they want to get paid like they're doing important work. So there's arguments to be made on both sides. We are back in court. We're just waiting for well, let's see. I think we're on high speed. Let me check. We have to watch 1.25 speed. Oh, we're on normal. We've got to crank that up. There we go. 1.25. Let's check our, should be 1080p. Quality. Oh, 720 is the best they'll do. We'll take it. We'll take 720. All right. We're trying to get all done. This is what happened today in the Ohio versus Madden trial. And then we have the podcast tonight. And after the podcast, well, during the podcast, the storm, I think, makes landfall. It's currently at, Cat 4 and strengthening? Nuts. It's absolutely crazy. What a day. All right. It's a Cat 3. Good. Cat 3. I mean, Cat 3, 120 mile an hour winds at Cat 3. It's a fast Cat 3. But we'll see how fast it goes beyond that. It's been a big day, Groovy Cheryl. It has. You shouted it at us, but it's been a big day. No need to shout. It's all right. Thank you, Groovy Cheryl. Appreciate that. All right. Let's skip ahead to court because we can. Oh, that audio sounds terrible already. We'll do some.
You're on the record on State versus Madden, CR 22-12-1675. The jurors are not present. The defendant is present with counsel, Mr. Wilder, and Mr. Burris, Mr. Holland, Detective Horton are present on behalf of the state of Ohio. Before the jurors come in, is there anything to put on the record on behalf of the state?
There is not anything. I just need, if I can, I was going through the exhibits real quick.
Oh, sure.
So
Okay.
nothing on behalf of the state of Ohio.
Anything on your behalf, Mr. Wilder?
Not at this time.
Okay.
You just give me one second.
We'll just give him 1 minute to get whatever he has in order.
So witness here?
I guess you're right. You want to be in the stand? Okay.
I am ready.
Is that a burgundy suit on our witness there? I think detective's still in the stand from yesterday. Silver's $32 an ounce today. It's $32. I remember when it was 18. I got my first silver when it was $18. Oh, new witness.
Screen down.
Happy birthday to Adam's wife. As always, defendant and lawyer are conversing, so we're going to zoom in on them. Lead detective in the burgundy suit.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you again for coming in early today. Does anyone have any violations of the court's recess instructions that they need to report? Okay. All right. As you'll recall, we left in the middle of Detective Trenum's testimony. And Detective, I would remind you that you are still under oath. And Mr. Burris, you may resume your examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Other detective on the stand. Okay. This guy's good. This guy's really good. Is that the same tie from yesterday?
Good morning again, sir.
Morning, sir.
All right, I think the last thing that we left with was I think I was getting ready to have you identify a couple of swabs.
Yes, sir.
So if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
Yes, sir. show you what has been marked as State's Exhibits 232 and 233. We'll start with 232 first. Can you tell us what State's Exhibit 232 is?
State's Exhibit 232 are swabs that I obtained from the green colored vest jacket from the marker number 1 in the photographs from the lower left region of the red stain on the clothing.
With this court's permission, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 114. It's already been admitted.
Permission is granted.
Is this on the two screen? Yeah.
You can log down, Mr. Halpin. I'll get this fixed.
Ooh, we got a train. Let me get the train ready to go. It takes 50. That's 54 and 55. 56. 57. 58. 59.
You want this in the slideshow?
60. 61.
All right, on State's Exhibit 114, Detective, can you show us where you took the swab that is contained in State's Exhibit 232?
Yeah. So, this region here, and that's where I obtained the swabs from the red stain on that clothing item.
Okay. And then, with the court's permission, I'd ask you to go ahead and open State's Exhibit 232.
Permission is granted.
All right, and what is what you're holding in State's Exhibit 232?
Again, these are sterile cotton swabs that are prepackaged and sealed. Upon swabbing the red staining, I broke the seal, applied 2 drops of distilled water to each cotton swab, swabbed the red staining, put it back in this container, and then put it in an envelope to be sent off and examined by BCI.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit 233. What is State's Exhibit 233?
State's Exhibit 233 is the same swabs as 232, but from a different area. It's from marker number 2, the red staining above the tear within the fabric of the same article of clothing.
And with the court's permission, I'd ask you to open State's Exhibit 233.
Permission is granted.
And 233, again, prepackaged sterile tip cotton swabs. I swabbed the red staining in this area, identified on this article of clothing as number 2, in the same manner as number 1. Distilled water on the cotton swabs, swab the red staining, put back into its prepackage, put in this envelope, and then sent off to BCI for further analysis.
And if you would, Detective, I know you testified a little bit about this yesterday, but if you could refresh some of the recollections of the jurors. What sort of training have you undergone in order to take swabs like this from items of evidence that you just described?
So I've actually taken an online training that was presented by the Ohio Attorney General's Office and by
University
BCI
of YouTube
with their clear instructions of how to properly collect and swab samples such as these according to the policies and procedures. So I'm following the policies and procedures that BCI would employ at their crime lab, but I'm doing it so with the instruction from them from the training I received here in-house at our headquarters.
Okay. And then, if I can approach the
You may.
or at least the area of the witness. So you said you took a swab from this area right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the other one is from this area right here?
Yes, sir.
Is there a particular reason, or why did you pick those two areas?
I'd actually collected swabs from all 5 identifiers on the front of the clothing, and I had taken the sterile scraping of the dry substance on the back of the clothing. When coordinating with BCI about what they felt was best to initially submit, they wanted me to just submit the swabs from identifier number 1 as States Exhibit 232 and swabs from identifier number 2, States Exhibit 233, along with submitting the entire article of clothing. So that was their recommendation.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily your decision. It was sort of a collective effort of many individuals in order to determine which swabs to send up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when swabs are taken from items of evidence, like we see in States Exhibit 114, what do you do with the swabs?
I package them sterilely and submit them online through a portal to BCI, and it is transported up to BCI.
I would assume that, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Right.
It's hand delivered.
Okay. And I assume once those items are taken, once those swabs are taken from the item it's contained in States Exhibit 114, I assume those swabs are kept at the Hamilton Police Department, like in a property room?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay. And again, that property room is secure. Only certain people would have access to the property room?
Yes, sir. I don't even have access to the property room, so I turn it over to another individual who securely has access.
Okay. And then the items would be taken to BCI by, I believe it's a rotation of different detectives. A detective each week would take any items up to BCI that need to be taken?
Yes, it is hand delivered by one of us to maintain that chain of custody.
Okay. And with the court's permission, if I can display States Exhibit 132. I think it's already been admitted.
No problem. Permission is granted.
Lady Laura, thank you. You
All right,
saw
so
me working on my neck.
What are we looking at here in States Exhibit 132, Detective?
After I collected swabs from each of the identifiers on the clothing, I then applied Blue Star in the same manner as I did in the sink in the bathroom at 1270 Parish Avenue to this article of clothing. Again, it appeared to me that the red staining on the article of clothing resembled that of blood. I applied Blue Star to see if I would get the same reaction as I would have in the sink and get the same chemiluminescent reaction as an indication for the potential presence or likelihood of blood being present. And when I applied Blue Star to identifier number 1 here, that was the reaction that I received, that there was a high likelihood that the red staining on the article of clothing was blood. I also applied it to be able to show the contrast between the stain and the color of the green jacket. It was kind of hard to see in its natural state. So this highlights the difference in location of where I obtained the swabs as well.
Okay. And you would have taken the swabs first?
Correct.
And then applied the Blue Star?
Yes.
Okay. States Exhibit 133. What are we looking at here, Detective?
It is the same application of Blue Star, but it is on identifier number 2. I apologize, you can't see the identifier number 2 as clearly as number 1, but that is because the clothing item had folded when I was spraying it. But again, this is where I took swabs prior to the application of Blue Star and got the same reaction as I observed in number 1.
134.
Okay. This is identifier number 3 on the same clothing item. Again, with the application of Blue Star, I received the same chemiluminescent reaction, indicating that there was a high likelihood of blood being present from the area of where I obtained the swabs.
And then 135.
Identifier number 4, again, same reaction to Blue Star from the area where I collected the swabs from this particular location on the same clothing item.
And then 136.
Number 5, again, collected swabs from this general area, administered Blue Star afterwards. We've seen the same reaction for the high likelihood of the presence of blood.
And then 137.
137 is the rear of the clothing item behind the left armpit. This was not a swab. Again, number 6 was a red stain, a substance that had dried and flaked. And so I took a sterile scalpel, again, it's prepackaged like you would the cotton swabs, and I was able to scrape that off into a druggist fold paper, package that to an envelope, much like the ones for States Exhibit 232 and 233. Once that was collected, I still, like Blue Star, got the same chemiluminescent reaction for the high likelihood that blood was present.
If I may approach the witness.
You may.
And Detective, what I would ask the court's permission, and I believe you've already identified State's Exhibit 211, but I'm going to take out 2 of them, please. And I know some of the tags have fallen off.
Yes.
So with the court's permission, if I can have the detective step down, and I would ask him to point on the actual exhibit itself where region number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are.
Permission is granted.
So again, a lot of the identifiers have fallen off because I manipulated it, these guys manipulated it, they've done their own analysis, it got sent back to us, we did another reanalysis of some areas. Stage 1, still present in the lower left region of this general location. 2, again, the general location of the cut mark. 3, as you can see, is still attached. It is right here on the chest pocket with the zipper. 4 is over here, lower right region. 5 was upper right region. And then if you flip around to 6 on the rear, the left armpit, right here where I'm indicating with my index finger, for number 6, I have the front.
Thank you, detective. If I may approach the witness.
You may.
And Detective, I'll hand you what's marked as State's Exhibit 218. I guess if you would, Detective, can you tell us what is in State's Exhibit 218, the first bag I gave you?
You want me to remove it from the bag?
Yes, please.
Okay. States Exhibit 218 is a dark colored gray button-up shirt. It was recovered on the second search warrant conducted on the residence. However, it was located during the first search warrant on the residence, but we did not know its interpretive value. We did not know it was evidence until the second search warrant on the residence where we recovered it.
Okay. And if you hold up State's Exhibit 218 with the court's permission.
Permission is granted.
It's a short sleeve, button-up Dickies gray shirt.
Thank you, Detective. And I'll probably be asking you to hold that here in a second.
Did I mess it up?
direct you to the exhibit book. I'm going to ask you to look at State's Exhibits 138 through 146.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And generally speaking, what are we looking at in State's Exhibits 138 through 146?
States Exhibit 138 through 146 are photographs that I collected of the same shirt that I just showed before you, where I identified numerous evidence of red staining on this clothing item. I did not identify all because there were too many, but there were numerous where I was able to locate on this gray shirt.
All right, in State's Exhibit 138 through 146, are all those photos that you took?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are those photos true, fair, and accurate as to your visual observations you were making of this gray shirt when you took the photos?
Yes, sir, they are.
Your Honor, I would ask that 138 through 146 be admitted and permission to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, they'll be admitted and they may be published.
All right, what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 138?
States Exhibit 138 is the gray shirt. Okay. And you can see that's just a photograph of it in its natural state.
And I know that you and I talked about this before. I know when looking at the photo, the shirt kind of looks green, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And that could be because of the lighting that we have at the department.
Okay. But the picture that we're looking at in State's Exhibit 138 is, in fact, the shirt that is on the floor behind you, on the ground behind you, which is State's Exhibit 218.
Yes, sir, it is. It's the same shirt.
Okay, and I guess with the court's permission, if you'd like to stand up and show the different tags. So I know there's a tag up top and there's a tag towards the bottom of the shirt there.
Permission is granted.
You can see
If you'd like to stand in front of the shirt, please.
inside the collar at the bottom of the shirt with the same manufacturer identifiers.
Okay. And inside the collar there is also Dickies and...
There is.
Let's say Dickies and Flex.
Dickies Flex.
Okay. Thank you, Detective.
Yes, sir.
The tag fell off there. All right, State's Exhibit 139. What are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 139?
This is the same shirt, but just generally, these are the locations where I identified what appeared to be blood stains, or red stains, if you will, on the front of the shirt. It is not all of them. It is just what was most apparent.
All right. State's Exhibit 140.
It's a close-up photograph. Same. It's showing identifiers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right-hand side. Or sorry, that would be the right-hand side in the photo, but it's the left side of the shirt. And then 19, 20, and 21 on the right-hand side of the shirt, but it's the left-hand side when viewing the photograph.
State's Exhibit 141.
This is the
Ricky
upper
C,
portion
thank
of
you
the
very
shirt.
much. 14 months.
With also the left sleeve. You can see number 5 there in the lower portion of the photograph connecting the two images. Again, it's just another picture of the different identifiers that I had marked on the shirt.
State's Exhibit 142.
And this is showing the right sleeve and the identifiers that I marked there that appear to resemble that of red staining or blood.
The right sleeve with the left side of the
photograph. Yes, it is. Yeah, you have to flip it in your mind.
All right, 143.
So these are close-up photographs of certain markers that I identified, number 2, 3, and 5. You can see the red staining in more detail.
State's Exhibit 144.
And this is the right sleeve. Well, yes, the right sleeve, but in the photograph it looks like it's on the left side, where you have identifiers number 13 and 14 that were marked.
State's Exhibit 145.
This is the back of the shirt, as is in its natural state.
And 146.
A shirt
And
in
this
its
is
natural
where I
state.
identified just generally 3 locations of where that red staining appeared to be. As you can see now from the back, the right sleeve is on the correct side of the screen, it's on the right side. And then the left side over there, identifier, this one would be on the left side on the shirt.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked State's Exhibit 234 and 235. And what is State's Exhibit 234?
State's Exhibit 234 are swabs of the red staining that I collected from identifier number 3 on the front of this same shirt within the lower left edge.
And then State's Exhibit 235.
And 235 are blood swabs taken from identifier number 14, which was the right sleeve of the shirt on the front portion.
All right, so in State's Exhibit 140 that's on the screen behind you,
Yes, sir.
worded swab which is contained in State's Exhibit 234. Where did that come from?
From this location, identifier number 3.
So left side of the shirt, but right side on the State's Exhibit.
Correct.
Okay. And then where did swab 235 come from?
235 is going to be in a different State's Exhibit photograph because it's on the right sleeve.
Which one's one? I'm sorry.
Probably 142, probably.
Yes. So State's Exhibit 142, I have 13 and 14 on the right sleeve, but 14 specifically was this location here. Swabs of the red staining that are contained within State's Exhibit 235.
All right, and I assume that, or actually, again, explain to ladies and gentlemen of the jury here, what it is you did to take the swabs that are contained in State's Exhibit 234 and 235. Explain how it is again that you did that.
Yes, so it's done in the same process as the swabs from the green vest. I collected them individually and separately. So State's Exhibit 234 was collected, again, with prepackaged sterile cotton swabs, where distilled water was applied to the cotton swabs. I swabbed that area of staining, collecting it, putting it back in its prepackaged container, putting it in an envelope to send to BCI, and 235 was collected in the same manner, but from a different and separate region. It was collected from number 14 on the shirt.
And I assume that this would have been done at a different time than the jacket to make sure that there was no cross-contamination that was done?
Yes, absolutely. I believe everything was collected and swabbed on the same day. However, the jacket was swabbed and collected first, repackaged. I changed PPE, I reapplied PPE, gloves, and then handled the shirt separately away from the green vest. So there was no cross-contamination issue.
And what is PPE?
Personal protection equipment, gloves, goggles, masks.
Okay. And then with the court's permission, I'd ask the detective to be allowed to step down with State's Exhibit 218. And I'd ask him to demonstrate on the actual exhibit, since probably several of the flags have fallen off, on the actual exhibit itself, where State's Exhibit 234, where that swab came from, and State's Exhibit 235.
Permission is granted.
So some of the stickers that are in place on the shirt have been moved. So the stickers that you can't see, don't think that that's where they are. Whatever's in the photograph, that's where they are. These things get tossed around. As you can see, one just fell. So State's Exhibit 234, very faint, but you can see here as it wraps around the left side of the shirt, which would be kind of the side where you have the seam. That's where that swab was collected for that State's exhibit. And on the front here, number 14 was right here on the right sleeve of the shirt. And differentiate different. Number 13 is up here, number 14 is back here, of course, the confidence.
Great, thank you, Detective. And again, how was it decided that those would be the two swabs, swab 234, or swab that's in State's Exhibit 234 and the swab contained in State's Exhibit 235? How was that decision arrived at to send, or to swab those areas and or to send that up to the lab?
Again, I spoke with the analysts and scientists at BCI. I gave them the pictures and documentation of this shirt, and it was their determination that
Sustained.
Objection, hearsay. It was their
In consultation with BCI, is that why it is that you sent up those particular swabs?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. I think you have the book. You have the books in front of you. If you would please flip to State's Exhibits 158 through 166.
8 more pictures coming in.
Okay.
And generally speaking, what is it that we're looking at in State's Exhibits 158 through 166?
So these series of State's exhibits were conducted after BCI had performed their analysis. Okay. And there's a particular reason why I say that, and we'll get to that. But these are photographs that I collected of the green vest here in State's Exhibit 158, which we will more closely view the tear in the green vest jacket.
Right, so generally speaking, these are, again, photos of the green vest jacket?
Yes.
Okay. Are those photos that you took?
Yes, they are.
True, fair, and accurate depictions of what it is that you were looking at when these photographs were taken?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I'd ask
fair,
that
and
158 through 166 be admitted in permission as well.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, they'll be admitted and they may be published.
All right. And Detective, what is it that we're looking at here in State's Exhibit 158?
State's Exhibit 158 is the green vest jacket. It's just kind of like an overview of the tear next to identifier number 2.
Yeah, if you would, so in these photographs, we're going to be looking at the tear that's in the vest, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and circle the tear it is that you're visually seeing in State's Exhibit 158. State's Exhibit 159.
So this is a close-up photograph of the tear. Now, in order to be able to take this photograph and represent it as best as I could as the fabric naturally lays and be able to see the uniqueness of that tear, I had to insert a piece of printer paper between the front and the back of the clothing item so you could actually see what that tear looked like as it lay flat. Otherwise, it would blend in with the background of the vest through the tear. You wouldn't see it.
Sterile paper.
And these photographs were taken well after these items were sent off to the lab for testing, and they were brought back to the Hamilton Police Department?
Yes. After the department and the prosecutor's office had spoke, we had decided that there was no more analysis to be performed by BCI, and that we were given permission to handle said items in this manner.
State's Exhibit 160.
So, State's Exhibit 160.
And let me stop you there, Detective, if I may approach the witness.
You may.
So this is day 4. This happened today in trial. We're just getting caught up.
Yes.
All that. Ooh, little package.
I believe we looked at this yesterday, but State's Exhibit
You've got
215.
mail.
Again, we're State's Exhibit 215.
State's Exhibit 215 is the Swiss Army knife, or multi-tool knife, that was recovered from the residence.
Okay. And what is it that we're looking at in State's Exhibit 160 then?
I was asked to
Just
see if
plain
there was
with the
any
blade?
correlation between the first blade attachment, where the blade was broken in some manner, and see if it correlated in any way or resembled in any way the tear that was observed on the green vest jacket.
Okay. And that's why it is you took this particular photograph?
Correct.
Okay. State's Exhibit 161.
Again, this is just another angle of how this uniqueness of the defect of the blade
Wouldn't it be the other way?
could have some similarities within the tear within that clothing.
162.
So again, with permission to handle these items in this manner, I inserted the knife between the front of the green vest jacket and the rear to be able to show maybe how the uniqueness of the blade defect could have caused this tear in this jacket, and is lined up as so.
State's Exhibit 163.
That is the orientation in which I took the photograph as observed in State's Exhibit 162, the one you just saw before. So that's how it was oriented and aligned as best as
Stabbed
possible.
inside the jacket.
State's Exhibit 164.
So State's Exhibit 164, again, with permission to handle said items of evidence, we aligned the gray shirt inside of the green vest as one would normally wear it to see if there were any correlations as to how it was aligned on someone's body if being worn together.
State's Exhibit 165.
And as you can see, I have then aligned the blade again to kind of demonstrate that uniqueness of the tear in the green vest jacket with the gray shirt inserted between.
And then 166.
And as an overall view of all the items combined with the blade itself having been inserted between the clothing items to kind of show the edge of the blade as having cut through the green vest.
All right, thank you, Detective. And then you have the exhibit book in front of you. I'd ask you to look at State's Exhibits 167 through 176.
Okay.
And generally speaking, what are we looking at in State's Exhibits 167 through 176?
These are photographs of the deceased victim's shirt where multiple tears were observed. And again, I was asked to see if there were any similarities with the multi-tool and specifically with the first blade attachment with the defected blade to see if anything lined up.
Again, are those photographs that you took?
Yes, they are.
True, fair, and accurate depictions of what it is that you were looking at?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd ask that 167 through 176 be admitted and permission to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. All right, they'll be admitted and they may be published.
If I may approach the
You may.
right, what are we looking at here in State's Exhibits? So we're going to do 210.
State's Exhibit 210 is the deceased victim's shirt,
Okay.
as observed in the photograph above.
Right. So then what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 167?
That is the victim's shirt laid out flat as best as possible. It's the front of it.
State's Exhibit 168.
State's Exhibit 168 is a tear within the victim's shirt. Again, I was asked to see if there were any similarities between any of the tears in the victim's shirt with that unique first blade attachment of the multi-tool or Swiss Army knife.
State's Exhibit 169.
So that is a close-up view of one of the tears. I identified it as tear number 1 in the photograph, as State's Exhibit 168 depicted. This is just a close-up photograph of this.
State's Exhibit 170.
This is with that multi-tool and the first blade attachment has the piece that's missing from the blade aligned with the tear in this fabric.
State's Exhibit 171.
This is a second tear, identified as tear number 2 within the victim's shirt.
All right, and if I can virtually.
You may.
If you're able to, Detective, State's Exhibit 210, can you show us on the actual shirt itself, State's Exhibit 210, where that photograph is taken of?
Yes.
And with the court's permission, I ask the detective to be able to step down and show the jury.
Permission is granted.
Front of the victim's shirt.
If you need help, let me know.
And I took that photograph from this tear right here that I identified. You can see that specific one, number 2.
Is that the bottom left part of the shirt?
It is. It is.
You can go and step down and make sure all the jurors are able to see that.
Again, I had to insert a piece of printer paper in the front and the back of the shirt so you can better visualize the layout of the tear when that's laid flat.
The bus just pulled out.
And State's Exhibit 172.
It's a close-up photograph of the tear identified as number 2 in the previous exhibit.
State's Exhibit 173.
And this is how it was aligned when that first blade attachment piece missing in the multi-tool appeared.
State's Exhibit 174.
This is tear number 4. It's on the victim's shirt.
And with the court's permission, Detective, are you able to show on the shirt where Exhibit number 4, the arrow is on the shirt?
Give me a minute to look through them all.
And if you're not too sure, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of the court's time. It is fairly difficult to relocate. Oh, no, I have located it. Identifier number 4 is actually a tear, which would be on the left side of the shirt.
Loud train.
Right here, the change my thumb. So it's not necessarily on the front of the shirt. It's more towards the left side. Like the bleach or the waist would be. Again, if you do it as best as possible, insert a piece of printer paper to take a contract with the background oil temperature.
Thank you, Detective. State's Exhibit 175.
Again, this is the tear identified as number 4 in the previous exhibit, but with the same blade attachment, kind of aligned above the tear in the fabric.
And Exhibit 1.
And the same tear identified as number 4, but with the blade attachment not aligned above, but over top of the tear in the fabric.
All right, thank you, Detective.
I'm not sure I'm buying the blade placement and the tear theory.
You may.
I think we're done with this stuff. So I think I neglected to ask you, going back to State's Exhibit 234 and 235, I believe you identified those, the swabs that you took from the gray shirt. With the court's permission, if I can ask you to first open State's Exhibit 234.
Permission is granted.
.234, State's Exhibit, again. Prepackaged sterile swabs, cotton swabs, that were taken from region number 3 of the gray shirt. Okay, so that was kind of like the lower left portion of the gray shirt. Again, I applied a couple drops of distilled water to each swab, rubbed the red staining, put the cotton swabs back in its original packaging, and prepackaged it in an envelope to be sent to BCI.
And on State's Exhibit 235, with the court's permission, I ask you to open 235.
Permission is granted.
And State's Exhibit 235. Same process of collection of the red staining as State's Exhibit 234. Prepackaged cotton swabs, distilled water applied to each swab, collected from the red staining of region number 14, which would have been the portion of the right sleeve on the front near the cuff. That was then put back in its original packaging, put into an envelope, and sent to BCI.
And likewise with the other 2 swabs, 232 and 233, those would have been kept at the Hamilton Police Department in the property room.
Yes, sir.
And again, only certain people would have access to that property.
Yes, sir.
And would have been taken up to BCI for testing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have heard a little bit about this, but Detective, were you assigned to a breaking, entering / burglary type offense that allegedly occurred at 1270 Parish Avenue on, I believe the date would have been October 6th of 2022?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Tell us how it is that you were assigned that particular case.
The defendant, Toby Madden, had made a offense report to Officer Bryant that I had been assigned for follow-up.
And what do you mean by follow-up?
I was assigned to reach out to Mr. Madden to kind of identify if there were any alleged suspects involved with the breaking and entering of the residence at 1270 Parish Avenue.
Okay. And what methods did you use, or how did you attempt to make contact with Toby Madden as a follow-up?
Yes, so on the offense report that P.O. Bryant had filed, he had gathered...
Objection, please.
Yes.
Objection. Let's see. PJ Wolf. Welcome to the gallery. 13 months there. Thank you, my friend PJ. Oh, my goodness. What's he eating? Swedish fish? Did someone give the defendant Swedish fish? They think the Swiss Army knife. Theory of defense is that the 3 city workers who came to check the gas just went off and stabbed her, and he's like, he tried to save her, but there was nothing he could do. That's the theory the defense is putting forward. The state's saying, no, he stabbed her, and the gas people, they all left, and she was alive when they left. So that's where we're at right now. The city workers have already testified. All of them chose to not have their face revealed on well, they testified, so we didn't see their faces, but their names were read.
I believe my question was, what methods or how did you try to make contact with Toby Madden?
So using the information from the report, phone number, address, I attempted to make contact by calling the listed phone number on the offense report to speak with Mr. Madden. I received no answer after calling twice. I then left my business card with my name, identifying that I was a detective for the City of Hamilton Police Department at the residence.
What, 1270 Parish?
Of 1270 Parish. The report, though, indicated an incorrect address for Mr. Madden. Said he resided at 250 Brookwood Avenue, which is not a good address for the defendant. The offense report was made for 1270 Parish Avenue. That's where I responded to in an attempt to speak with Mr. Madden and leaving my card. After having left my card, I still never received a call or contact from Mr. Madden himself, and I made the case inactive until further, until he made attempts to reach out to me.
If I can have probably 2 or 3 moments, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Allen.
Brief pause. They might be done with the questioning here. Let's see. Background remover. I'm going to realign that picture they showed with the knife overlaid on the shirt. I'm not buying that. For some reason, it doesn't look right. So here's one.
I believe that's all the questions I had, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Somebody's phone just went off.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning, sir.
I want to talk to you with this, the alleged burglary incident you just spoke of. Is there a chance you didn't have the correct number when trying to contact Mr. Madden?
To be honest with you, whatever number I was given was the one I attempted to make contact with. I received no contact. That's why I made a personal appearance to drop my card in case the number was wrong.
Okay.
You could contact me with the correct number.
Sure. But my original question is there a chance you had the wrong number?
Yes, the phone number could have been documented incorrectly by the reporting officer.
And the reporting officer on that was Taylor Bryant, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you review his report before you came into court today?
Yes, I've reviewed that report.
And were you, at the time, were you a detective assigned to that specific burglary that occurred 5 days before?
Yes, I was.
Is it your understanding that Officer Bryant responded to the scene?
Yes, he did.
And took photos?
Yes, sir.
And does his report indicate that there was damage to the back door?
Yes, it does.
Did you have any contact with anybody else at 1270 Parish, such as Michelle?
No, I did not.
And you never spoke or saw Mr. Madden in relation to the burglary 5 days before?
No, sir.
Did you yourself go out to 1270 Parish and look at the property or the door at all?
I didn't know. I try to make contact with residents there before going to the back of the residence, make my appearance known that, hey, I'm law enforcement. I'm not somebody just wandering about in the backyard. So I did not go to the rear of the residence and inspect the damage as reported.
Okay.
I just went to the residence to try and make contact with a homeowner or a resident there.
Sure. And Detective, you can't do every single thing possible on a case. Sometimes you have to rely on reporting officers or patrolmen to do certain things for you and give you this evidence for you to follow up on if you need to. Is that kind of fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to start with regards to the incident that ends up happening 5 days later. The knife, if the state would mind, since they're connected to the overhead, if you could put 150 up for me, please. Good. Detective, where did this knife come from within the Parish residence?
It was located within the deceased victim's black backpack.
To your knowledge, was that black black backpack? Was it zipped up or
Was it black?
buttoned up in any way?
I can't recall if it was zipped up or secured in any way.
Okay. Now, you testified that you observed this knife and you thought that there may be some sort of residue or some sort of wiping on this. Is that what you testified to?
Yes.
Now, you've shown us the fluorescent blue star that you used on other things, the sink, we saw it on the vest. Why did you never use the blue star on this knife to see if there was presence of blood on this?
That's because, again, this was a critical piece of evidence. So you kind of have to weigh the results of some tests being performed versus what your results may be. Knowing that this was a critical piece of evidence that might have minimal but sufficient important evidence to this case, I did not want to interrupt any DNA typing or analysis conducted by BCI by introducing Blue Star. Blue Star is a tool, it's a screening tool that you can use if you have sufficient evidence to use it. Here, I did not want to use it on such a critical piece of item of evidence. I just wanted to document it and submit it to the lab so they could do their own analysis in a more sterile environment.
That's the Zachariah Anderson.
I thought you testified, though, about blue star, that doesn't interrupt blood presence if it's there. I thought you said that to us.
Yes, you are right. It does not interrupt DNA typing or analysis. But again, you want to be able to have sufficient evidence to document the presence of blood. And on such a small knife blade, I don't want to apply Blue Star by overspraying and causing any DNA or blood that could have been present to fall off of the blade onto the sterile cardboard sheet below, and therefore losing that value of any evidence or potential evidence.
Okay. And the determination and maybe the conclusion of whether or not this blade has blood on it, that's for a DNA expert from BCI, is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Were there any photos of this knife sent to the coroner?
If there were, I did not send them. I do not know.
Okay. That wasn't something you were involved with?
No, sir.
You weren't recorded. The coroner referenced maybe possibly having a photo of a knife, but you're saying you weren't involved with that?
No, sir, I was not.
Did you attend the autopsy?
No, I did not.
Is it a common practice for someone within your department or your agency to attend the autopsy?
That depends upon the coroner. I guess it's a case by case. Sometimes we're allowed to attend, and sometimes we're not allowed to attend. But I did not attend.
To your knowledge, within the residence during these searches, were there any rags, towels, paper towels covered in blood recovered?
Not that were apparent or observed at the scene.
If the state could please pull up 77. Detective, this is one of the exhibits that you testified to, I believe it was yesterday. So the fluorescent that we're seeing here is indicating that there's blood that was present at some point. Is that fair?
Yes, it is a screening tool that gives you with a high degree of certainty that within the fluorescence that there is a high likelihood that blood is present.
Okay. And you would agree with me that a sink is normally a place where you're going to wash your hands, correct?
That is correct.
And would you agree with me that if you had placed your hands on someone's body to perhaps give CPR, that you might end up with blood on your hands?
That is correct.
Are we able to tell from this fluorescent imaging whether someone washed their hands, but then they try to wipe any and everything away from the sink? Can we tell that from this image?
No, I don't see any apparent, if you're asking for like smears or wipes.
Unlike the floor, check the floor.
What I want to ask is if someone washed their hands in this sink and there's blood that falls in the sink, the water takes most of the blood down into the sink, but then someone wants to then take a rag, kind of wipe the bowl out, wipe the edges. Would this fluorescent that we see in State's Exhibit 77, would it appear differently? Would it have swirls and motions like that for the blood?
I don't know if it would or not, to be honest with you. I just know how to detect its presence and recognize its appearance with the reaction. I don't know if it would show a smear.
Right. Well, during your training with Blue Star, do they not cover something like that we can not only detect where blood has dropped, but we can also tell if someone has tried to wipe blood away? Is that not part of the training?
No, I'm sure you could be able to indicate if something has been wiped up. But specifically, no, that was not covered in any of the trainings that I was a part of.
All right. So you're telling me this picture is going to appear that way, whether the blood just was washed off hands, went down the sink, or if someone sat there and you literally used a towel to try to wipe everything up. You can't tell us if this picture would be different if someone tried to wipe all that away?
Oh, no, I'm sure it has the possibility of appearing different, yes.
Just a possibility? You don't think it would show swirls in this picture if someone used a towel?
I haven't been a part of any type of practical examination of that,
Okay.
but it is possible, yes.
I think the
you were
defense is
involved with
right
some
there.
of the searches
You can see if
at
it's
the property, correct?
Yes, I was there.
Were you involved with the search of Rochelle's car at the residence?
I did not search the victim's car.
Okay, so you would not be aware that rifles were found inside her car?
I was not a part of that search.
If the state wouldn't mind putting Exhibit 160 up. I want to talk to you about State's Exhibit 160. You were talking about the knife, and you were talking about some of the cuts within the vest. You've handled not only the vest and the knife. You see pictures of it. You were there. You've analyzed it. Would you agree with me that the vest and the knife are not new?
Are not new.
Meaning like they don't appear that they were recently purchased. They appear old. It's not like they were 1 week old, like they've just been bought.
I can't date the appearance of clothing when it was purchased versus if it's worn, and same thing with a knife.
Well, you can't tell does that knife appear to be new?
No, it doesn't appear to be brand new, but I'm not going to date it.
Does that appear to be rust on the knife?
Yeah, there could be indications of rust on the knife.
Like common knowledge, rust doesn't appear just overnight, right?
Right.
Takes a long time.
Again.
Just off your common everyday knowledge, with things you have in your house or you've been around, it takes a long time for rust to set in. Is that fair?
I would say it does take time for rust to set in. Okay. Yes.
When you're testifying about the cut in this vest, you said you had to put a piece of white paper underneath it to see it, correct?
Yes, because the background behind the cut is the same as the foreground, so it blends in. So yeah, I had to put a piece of paper in between so you can see the actual layout of the tear in the fabric.
So this, in order to find this cut and to look at it, you had to get pretty close to it. Is that fair?
Yes.
So if there was an angle from a Kroger video up on the ceiling, there's a chance it might not capture a cut that's in the vest. Is that fair?
It depends on the quality of the camera.
Well, true, but you do agree with me that you need a piece of copy paper just to see the cut up close, right?
I think it highlights the difference. It contrasts it. You can see the cut. I could pull the article item out, and the jury and everybody here would see the location of where the cut is. But to see it more thoroughly as what its design is, you need to highlight and contrast the differences between the front of the vest and the back of the vest. So,
and we don't know how long that cut's been on that vest. Is that fair?
I don't have any way to date how long that cut's been there.
All right, that's all. Well, give me 1 second to confirm.
I really don't think.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Any redirect? Oh, okay.
I really don't think that. Look at this. If you look at this knife cut right there. Sorry, I'll turn this back on. The knife cut there. Let me show you what I did in Canva to play with this. Hang on just 1 second.
That's all right. Sure. Sir, did you do any kind of blue star illumination on the back door or near the back door?
No, I did not.
Was there any thing you did to try to observe or find out if there was any blood or other evidence at the back door?
The back door was locked with both doorknobs. I didn't have an indication that it had been opened at the time that I responded for the first search warrant on the day of the incident. So no, I did not.
But you were aware that 5 days before a burglary had been reported at that back door?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Thank you. Redirect?
Again, it was just reported. There was no follow-up that was able to be done because you couldn't make contact with them.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. You may step down. State ready to call its next witness.
First of all, I believe Detective Trenton can be released from the state subpoena under Mr. Wilder would like him.
I'm sorry, Judge.
Detective Trenton be recalled?
No.
Okay, I just want to release him from my subpoena. No, this might be good. I know it's a little early. This might be a good mid-morning break time because I think the next witness is going to be here now.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead and take our break. It's about 9:40. We'll take 15 minutes and come back at 9:55. Please remember my recess instructions.
Okay, so really quickly, let's look at. We'll wait and see if they actually take a break. Give me a second. Wait for the state seal. Okay, jury's gone. Anybody need anything?
Okay, the jurors have been excused from the courtroom. Before we take recess, I did give out jury instructions on Monday. As we're getting further along in the case, I'd like counsel to be prepared to have our first discussion about those at the conclusion of the state's case. I anticipate we'll have additional conversations, but just to get a start on that after we've at least heard the state's case. Other than that, is there anything from the state before we take our break?
I anticipate 2 more witnesses, Catherine Daly from BCI and Tanya Cook.
Thank you for that. Mr. Wilder?
Judge, are we still on the path of stopping at 12 like yesterday? Is that still
Yes, sir.
Today?
Yes, sir.
And that includes anything, even with instructions or other things, we're dropping at 12?
Pretty close to. If we need just a few minutes, I can spare that, but any lengthy discussions we'll have to have about tomorrow.
Okay. And to be, well, that's not sure.
Okay, all right. We'll be back then at 9:55. Thank you.
And they actually took a break. Yay. All right. So defendant leaves. Let's see. Where are we at? Right here. I lost my knife cut. Where was the knife cut at? Anyway, this is what I made. Doesn't that look like a better match than flipped around the other direction? Like this? Well, if it will. Come on, where's my timeline? Go back right here. Where's my timeline? Come on. Okay, hang on. We'll get this figured out. I'm not showing you, am I? Trying to find the right spot. Just 1 second. He's showing the knife and all the different spaces where it was cut. All right, here we go. Just about there. Okay, so camera 8. So this is his picture. That's what he says. What he says thinks caused that. We'll dump that and append on the end, and then here's my picture that I did, which I think is a little better lineup of how it might happen. But the only problem with this argument was actually the problem with both arguments is the piece that's missing, that cut piece that's missing, the V, the knife is not sharp in that area. It's broken. It's a flat piece of metal. Now you could probably scratch yourself pretty good with it, but it's not going to cut. If it makes more sense that this was a slash, like a slash or a stab, where there was a fold in the shirt that caused that V to be formed. I don't see that knife is like just punching like a cookie cutter outline into the shirt. I think that's a faulty conclusion. Was it a stab? Definitely. Knife cut? Yes. Look at that sharp edge. I think there was a blade all the way down to the end. It was a stab, but I don't think it was like, oh, here's the notch where it fit perfectly. No. I'm not buying that one. We know it's not a cutting edge because it's a broken blade. It was probably used for, I don't know, they always say a knife is the least effective and most expensive screwdriver you will ever own. It was probably used as a screwdriver, and it snapped that blade. And that piece was missing from that, or This is sad and tragic, but it could have been broken out in the brutal attack at some point. That piece could be missing. It's not a can opener. That was meant to be a regular blade. This is RA's cutting edge research. Is the cutting edge. All right, let's see. Let's get ready to go back to court. Let's fast forward just a wee bit so we can be done before the podcast starts. Where's my mouse gone? It's there. I just can't see it. Okay, here we go. Was it not playing? I have to hit the play button too. So much work. There we go. Judge is coming back.
First, Mr. Hahn and Detective Horton are present, and Mr. Wilder is present with Mr. Madden, who appears in person. Before the jury comes in, is there anything on behalf of the state of Ohio?
Just the next witness, Catherine Daly, does not wish to be
Another witness does not want to be filmed.
No, just not.
Okay.
Let me fix the audio because it decided to come in just in one ear. There we go. Josh, thank you. You're doing a fabulous job on day one of being a mod.
Are there any violations of the court's recess instructions that anyone needs to report?
Yes, Sean, thank you. State of Ohio would call Catherine Daly.
Catherine Daly, forensic scientist from OBCI, Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification, or something similar to that. Can somebody find me like an Amazon link for that statue? I'd like a Lady Justice holding the scales of justice and the sword of justice. Although I'd like mine to be blindfolded, so it's blind justice. Boom, just happened. Helene, Cat 4, wins 130 miles per hour.
You may proceed.
Yes, Sean, thank you.
Josh, if you want to take care of this one as well, feel free. Just try to
Good
go
morning.
easy on him.
Appreciate you
60
being here. Would you
seconds.
please
Good.
state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Yes, my name is Catherine Daly. First name is spelled Katharine. Last name Daly, Dailey.
And where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed at the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations. It's commonly referred to as BCI.
Okay. And what is BCI?
BCI is a law enforcement agency that will assist various other local law enforcement agencies in the investigation of crimes.
Okay. And is there a particular section of BCI that you work for?
Yes, I work in the laboratory section, specifically in the DNA section.
Okay. And what would be your job title at BCI?
I'm a forensic scientist.
Okay. And explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it means to be a forensic scientist.
A forensic scientist will look at items of evidence and collect samples for different types of analyses. In my case, collect samples for DNA analysis.
Okay. And in regards to your employment at BCI, being a forensic scientist in the DNA section, actually, are you assigned to the DNA section?
Yes.
Okay. So then in regards to your employment being a forensic scientist in the DNA section, would you please describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your education, your background and training in order to achieve such a position?
Yes, I have a bachelor's
Josh,
of
stay
science
safe.
degree.
Thank you.
My degree was from Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. My major was in microbiology and my minor was in chemistry. And upon being hired at BCI, I underwent a year-long training program that included mock cases, lectures, online coursework through West Virginia State University, reading of forensic articles, journal articles, and lots of other things as well.
Okay. And how long have you been assigned to the DNA section at BCI?
I started in December of 2011, so I'm coming up on 13 years.
And on prior occasions, have you had the opportunity to conduct testing for DNA on different evidentiary items that have been submitted to BCI?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many times you've run such tests?
Thousands of times.
And based on the thousands of times that you have conducted these types of tests, have you been able to make either a positive identification or I guess not an identification based on the testing experience you have run on evidentiary items submitted to your lab?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And if I use the phrase inclusions, what does that mean to you?
If someone is determined to be included in a DNA profile, that means that their DNA profile that we obtain from a known standard is consistent with that of a DNA profile obtained from an evidence item.
Okay. And if I use the phrase exclusion, what would that mean?
That means when making those two comparisons again between the known DNA standard and a DNA profile from an evidence item, at least one of the locations that we're looking at on that DNA profile is not consistent.
Okay. And have you previously been qualified as an expert in forensic science in the courts of law, first of all, here in the state of Ohio?
Yes.
How many times would you say that you have been?
It's upwards of 80 times.
Okay. And how about outside of the state of Ohio or including the federal system? Have you been called to testify as an expert as well in either other states or in the federal system?
In the federal system, yes.
Okay. How many times would you say you testified in the federal system?
One time that I can recall offhand.
Okay. How about you told me the state of Ohio goes in the federal system?
Yes.
Okay. And at this point, Your Honor, I would tender Ms. Daly as an expert in forensic science as it relates to DNA analysis.
Mr. Robert?
Judge, no voir dire for this witness, no objection.
Very well. Witness will be so qualified.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Daly, do I understand that you were asked to compare various items in the cases before this court in regards to DNA, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And as part of the comparison process that I'm going to have you talk about, generally speaking, can you educate the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to how it is evidence arrives at your laboratory, at BCI?
Yes, a local law enforcement agency will bring the evidence to our laboratory, and our evidence receiving staff will take in that evidence. It's assigned a unique case number, and each item of evidence is given a unique item number. These are tracked throughout the laboratory via barcodes, and they're placed in a secure vault until analysis is to be done on those items of evidence.
And if I may approach the other one.
You may.
And hopefully it'll be an item that's on the screen behind you. This is going to be, just for purposes, this is going to be State's Exhibit 234.
I don't agree with state employees being able to say, I don't want to have my face shown.
Kind of
Sort of like a public
light
servant.
purplish type label that is on this particular exhibit. Can you just explain what it is that we're looking at here? Because I know we started talking about barcodes and things like that. So what is indicated on this particular exhibit?
So this purple barcode that is on this item will tell us what the BCI lab number associated with this item of evidence in this case is. It also tells us what the BCI item number is. At the top it says item 15. It'll tell us what agency submitted that item as well as their agency case number. And this is the barcode that would be used to track that evidence item throughout the laboratory. So for instance, when I would take this item of evidence into my custody, I also have a barcode that's assigned to me. So this would track it in the computer system saying that it's in my custody.
Okay. And I would assume that each case would have a unique lab number, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then, but if there's multiple items that are submitted under the same lab number, that's how we get item number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to however many items BCI winds up getting?
That's correct.
Okay. And I would assume that when items are submitted to BCI, where would they be stored? Obviously prior to testing and then stored after testing?
They are secured in a evidence vault.
Okay. And again, I assume that not just anybody has access to the evidence vault. There's only certain people who will be allowed to go into the evidence vault?
Yes, it's limited access.
Okay. And I would assume that there has to be some sort of code punched in order to go into the vault to obtain items?
Yes. In order to obtain those items, you have to scan a card as well as punch in a specific number to the individual that's trying to get into the vault.
Okay. How do I take this down for now? So how is it that you're able to ensure the integrity of evidence that is submitted to BCI and stored at BCI prior to testing?
So when the evidence items are received by the laboratory, the seal is checked on those items of evidence. as well as when that item of evidence is retrieved for analysis, the seal is also checked and noted. If any irregularities would be noticed, that would be put in the analysis notes.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that I have used the phrase DNA, and I'm sure everybody has heard from TVs and movies about DNA, but could you please educate ladies and gentlemen of the jury here as to what DNA is and what does DNA stand for?
Yes, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a blueprint for our bodies, so it's going to tell us things like what color hair we might have or what color eyes we might have. We get half of our DNA from our mom and half from our dad, and it's unique to each individual, except for in the case of identical twins, and it's also the same throughout our body. So if I were to take a swab from my cheek and a blood sample for myself, the DNA profile developed from each of those would be the same.
Okay. Now, in regards to DNA and what it is we just testified about, can DNA be used for comparison purposes to see if you can identify samples left behind on different objects to a certain individual?
Yes, it can.
Okay, if you would explain, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how it is that you can do that.
So when we're making a DNA comparison, it's a 4-step process. The first step is going to be extraction, so we're going to take the DNA off of whatever item it was, whether it was a swab similar to a Q-tip, a cutting from an item, or a sample from like a cigarette butt. The second step that we're going to do then is quantification. We're going to determine how much DNA was obtained from that sample. Third step is called amplification, where we're going to make millions and millions of copies of certain regions of the DNA. And the fourth step is a real fancy word for taking a picture. It's called electrophoresis. So when I have those pictures at the end from both the evidence samples as well as the known reference standards, I can compare those two together and see if they are similar or dissimilar.
Okay. Now, in regards to DNA that may be left behind on a particular item, can you explain to ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that might happen?
Yes, DNA can be left behind on an item a number of different ways through bodily fluids, so saliva, urine, feces, semen, blood, or it could be left behind on an item by touching it. So my DNA would be expected to be on the binder that I brought with me today.
Okay. And if I use the phrase primary transfer, what does that mean to you?
That is the direct transfer of DNA to an item. So my DNA to my binder would be primary transfer.
Okay. And then what about secondary transfer?
Secondary transfer would be if someone came and picked up my binder other than myself. And if I were to try to swab their hands, they may or may not have my DNA on their hands because of that secondary transfer.
Now, in regards to internal lab protocols at BCI, what efforts are made to prevent cross-contamination or mixture of substances or samples that you may test?
So there are a number of different precautions that we take at the laboratory. Just to name a few, only one item of evidence is open at a time, so we're only looking at one item of evidence. We will also use a bleach solution to bleach down our worktops. We use brown paper to serve as a barrier between that bleached benchtop and the item of evidence. We also wear personal protective equipment, so gloves, masks, lab coats, just to name a few things.
So in essence, you're not going to be testing multiple items at a time, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I assume every time an item is tested, all surfaces and utensils will be cleaned before testing another sample?
Yes, absolutely.
And I assume that those are the protocols that BCI puts in place specifically for all employees to follow to make sure there isn't any sort of cross-contamination or anything like that?
Yes.
All right, so now in regards to DNA, what is the methodology that is used for determining if a particular item does have any DNA on it? And if it does, take us through the process, and I think you talked about it a little bit, of extracting that DNA from that item.
Yes. So initially the item is received by a forensic biologist, and the forensic biologist is someone that's going to look at the item of evidence and collect any relevant samples. So they're going to look at potential bodily fluids, see if they can perform any testing to try to help determine what that bodily fluid might be. They'll collect samples from either bodily fluids or samples where someone might come into contact with an item. So shirts, maybe the way they wore it, so they'll swab the shoulder areas that come into contact with your skin. If it's something like a cigarette butt, they might take a cutting from the paper around the cigarette butt. And those samples are then placed into a tube and they are sent forward for the DNA analysis process. The DNA analysis process is that 4-step process that I mentioned earlier.
And go ahead, and just the different names of the process.
Yes. So first is extraction, second is quantification, then amplification, and then electrophoresis, where we get a picture of the DNA profile at the end.
So what is it that you're actually doing to the sample that you have in order to extract the DNA?
We are applying certain chemicals to that sample to help remove the DNA off of whatever the substrate was that it was on, whether it was a swab or a piece of paper, and get it into the solution so that we can look at just the DNA itself.
All right, and we're going to get into this here probably very shortly, but with that process, with that process that you do with the items that they're going to be compared, there's probably two different phrases that we're going to talk about. So what is a known sample?
A known sample is a sample collected from an individual, so the origin is known. So we can use that DNA profile obtained from that item as a reference standard for comparison to any unknowns.
Okay. And then what's an unknown sample?
An unknown sample is a DNA profile that is obtained from evidence items within the case.
Okay. Like the items have been submitted to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So then in regards to known samples that BCI would receive and unknown samples that BCI would receive, would you be able to compare those known samples to unknown samples to see if there is a match?
Yes.
And I assume when you make that type of comparison, whether they're known samples or unknown samples, do you generate or author a report to document what your findings are?
Yes.
And I assume that those reports are generated in the ordinary course of business by BCI?
Yes.
And those labs would be, or those lab reports would be kept in the ordinary course of business at BCI?
Yes.
Okay. And would you have done that in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you compare DNA samples, or unknown samples to known samples, are you able to calculate a statistical frequency of a particular DNA profile?
Yes, we will calculate statistics on the evidence profile to show how rare or how common it is within the population.
Okay. And if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
Be 239 and 240. Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 239 and 240. What are State's Exhibits 239 and 240?
These are copies of the reports that I authored in this case.
Okay. The true, fair, and accurate, is that, actually, let me ask you this, is that a copy of your report?
Yes.
Okay. And is that the true, fair, and accurate copy of the report that you would have generated?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And would that aid you in your testimony today?
Yes.
Okay. I know we have several things to go through. All right. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor. I'll have you identify what State's Exhibit 222 is, please.
State's Exhibit 222 is BCI item number 1, which is a DNA standard from Ms. Broussard.
Do people just not have mufflers on their cars in Ohio? Why are so many cars so loud?
And I think that is the only one that has not been opened.
There's our 100th toot. How tall do you think that statue is behind the judge? Do you think it's like 22 inches tall? The thing's huge.
And what is contained within State's Exhibit 222?
State's Exhibit 222 has a blood card from Ms. Broussard.
And if I could ask you to open that second envelope as well. Yeah, I'll take this from here. All right, so 222. Does that have a similar label that it is that you talked about before, item number 1?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and we have the unique laboratory number 22-19832.
Correct.
Should we count those as toots? Toot toot.
And does this card that is inside, does that have any markings that you're familiar with or that you recognize?
Yes, it does.
Okay, what are the markings that you recognize?
The markings on this item have the BCI lab number, our item number, and the individual's initials and date of the individual who took the samples, as well as what date the samples were taken.
And then States Exhibit 223.
States Exhibit 223 is BCI item number 2, which is a DNA standard from Mr. Madden.
And if you would take out what's inside, and I will put them into it. I did ask the court's permission before. I have permission to publish 223.
Yes, granted.
And on the screen to your left, again, do you recognize any of the numbers or markings on that?
Yes, this is the barcode for BCI item number 2 under BCI case number 22-19832.
And then what is contained within States Exhibit 223?
There are 2 manila envelopes in here, and they have swabs within them.
Okay. And I believe this particular one. Would you mind taking that out, please? Do you recognize, are there any markings on that particular exhibit that you recognize?
Yes, on this exhibit, there are the same markings as before from the analyst who took the sample from this item.
And permission to publish, Your Honor.
Permission is granted.
Is that what we're looking at here on the screen?
Yes, it is.
This chain of evidence stuff is chain of custody for the evidence is sometimes a little bit meticulous and slow. It is important to show that it's been preserved, documented, and thus we can trust the results.
All right, so speaking now about States Exhibit 222, the blood card for Ms. Broussard, and 223, the swabs from Toby Madden. These would be what are known as known samples, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are these 2 items, the 222 and 223, are those items that would have been tested by BCI?
Yes.
Okay, and let's start with 222, the blood card from Ms. Broussard. Were you able to develop a DNA profile from that blood stain card?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And with that DNA profile, would that have been developed using the procedures outlined for the ladies and gentlemen here?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess if you would, now that we're talking about an actual sample, if you would, just go ahead and briefly explain to them the procedures again as to how you develop a DNA profile from it.
Yes. So in this instance, a tip of the swab would have been cut into a tube, and it would have been sent forward for the DNA analysis process. So it would have been undergone the extraction process, quantification, amplification, and electrophoresis. And then I would have used that picture of the DNA profile to make my comparisons to any profiles developed from evidence items.
And from States Exhibit 222, the blood stain card, were you able to develop a DNA profile?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And if I use the wrong word, please correct me.
You said
and then in
two.
regards to States Exhibit 223, the swab from individual identified as Toby Madden, were you able to develop a DNA profile from that particular item as well?
Yes.
And you would have used the same procedures that have now been outlined twice by you in order to generate a DNA profile?
That's correct.
Okay. And you were able to develop a DNA profile?
Yes.
Okay. So now that BCI has a DNA profile from Ms. Broussard from the blood stain card, and now has a DNA profile from Toby Madden from the swab, are you now able to, I guess, compare those particular items, the blood stain from 222, the DNA profile, and the DNA profile from 223, are you able to compare that to unknown samples?
Yes.
Okay. And then by comparing those known samples to unknown samples, that's how you're able to either include or exclude.
That's correct.
Okay.
I like how he stepped forward and stepped back to illustrate inclusion,
If I may approach the
exclusion.
You may.
Found a Lady Justice statue. It's 56 inches tall, weighs 85 pounds. Oh, this one's not dressed appropriately.
Now I'll hand you what's been marked as States Exhibit 224.
Guess there's
And
none.
I have you identify what States Exhibit 224 is.
States Exhibit
$1,800.
224 is BCI item number 3, which is a envelope containing Miss Brusaw's left-hand fingernail clippings, as well as a fingernail clipper.
And if I may display States Exhibit 224.
You may.
Again, do you recognize any of the labeling on States Exhibit 224?
Yes, I recognize the BCI barcode as well as the individual's initials and date when they collected the sample from the item.
Okay. And much like the procedures that you use to develop a DNA profile from 222 and 223, would you have done something similar to States Exhibit 224?
Yes.
And were you able to develop any sort of profiles on that?
Yes.
Okay, and then let me ask you this. Were you able to come to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty? Do you have an opinion as to the DNA profile that was found in States Exhibit 224?
Yes.
Okay, what is that opinion?
It is a mixture of DNA profiles, so that means there's more than one individual contributing to the DNA on the left-hand fingernail clipping, specifically of swabbing from a stain. The major DNA profile, or the individuals that is contributing a higher concentration or a higher amount of DNA, that DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Brusaw. Mr. Madden is not that major contributor, and the additional DNA on that item is not of sufficient quality for any comparisons.
And is there a statistical analysis or a statistical breakdown as to the frequency of Ms. Brusaw?
Yes, the DNA profile, the major DNA profile from the fingernail clipping, specifically the swabbing from the stain, the estimated frequency of occurrence of the major DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. So that means I would have to test a number larger than 1 trillion individuals to expect to find this DNA profile again in the population.
And certainly there's not a trillion people in this world, are there?
There are not.
What does it mean to be a major contributor, and obviously what does it mean to not be a major contributor?
A major contributor is an individual that's contributing a higher concentration or a higher amount of DNA in the sample compared to any other contributor or contributors.
States Exhibit 225. Have you identified that, please, ma'am?
States Exhibit 225 is BCI item number 4, which is an envelope that contains Ms. Brusaw's left-hand fingernail scrapings.
Okay. And what is the difference between, if you know, fingernail clippings versus fingernail scrapings?
My understanding is in the method of collection, a scraping is what it sounds like, scraping underneath someone's nails, versus a clipping is similar to how you or I would clip our nails.
And I'm going to put this up here. States Exhibit 225. Has that been admitted, Your Honor, officially?
No, it's been identified but not admitted.
I guess I probably should have asked for 224 to be admitted to 225. Now I'll go ahead and housekeeping matters 226 and 227.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, those will be admitted.
I apologize. And again, this has a similar label number.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Item number 4, similar lab number 22-19832.
Correct.
And was this item, although BCI received this item, did you analyze this item in any way?
No, this item was not examined.
Okay, is there a reason why it wasn't examined?
We looked at the fingernail clippings first.
Okay. And States Exhibit 226. Have you identified States Exhibit 226?
States Exhibit 226 is BCI item number 5, which is an envelope containing Ms. Brusaw's right-hand fingernail clippings and a fingernail clipper.
Okay. And again, item number 5 is similar label, similar lab number 22-19832.
That's correct.
Okay. And did BCI And did you do an analysis on State's Exhibit 226?
Yes.
Okay. And again, based on your training, education, experience, and your analyzation of State's Exhibit 226, do you have an opinion as to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to whose DNA is on this side?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
The DNA profile from the right hand fingernail clippings, specifically a sample from the stain, is also a mixture of DNA profiles. The major profile is consistent with Ms. Broussard. Toby Madden is not the major contributor, and the additional DNA on this item as well is not of sufficient quality for comparisons.
Okay. So we have no idea whose DNA that might be.
That's correct.
Could that still be Toby Madden's DNA?
I can't make any conclusions regarding who the contributor of that additional DNA is.
And then State's Exhibit.
Brandy's literally taking us on a hurricane walk. If over on her channel, you might want to pop over there and say, tell her to be safe.
And what is State's Exhibit 227?
It's crazy.
State's Exhibit 227 is BCI item number 6, which is an envelope
She's
containing
right there
Ms.
on the
Broussard's right hand fingernail scrapings.
Okay. And were these analyzed by BCI?
They were not.
Similar reason why the left fingernail scrapings were not analyzed?
That's correct.
Brandy's plan for the hurricane apparently is, I don't live on the ground floor or the second floor, so I should be good. That's her emergency plan. And she's on the backside. Storm surge isn't going to be too bad.
All right, State's Exhibit, for the record, 213. Do you recognize that particular exhibit?
Yes.
And how do you recognize that particular exhibit?
State's Exhibit 213 is BCI item number 7.
And I'll take that from you real briefly. Again, that has a similar barcode and label as the other ones do. Item number 7, 22-19832.
Yes.
If I can have you take out what is in State's Exhibit 213, please. And what sort of analysis was done on that particular exhibit?
This item was examined for the presence of possible blood. No blood was identified on this item, as well as 2 samples were taken for potential DNA analysis. However, those were not sent forward for DNA analysis.
Okay. But there was no blood that was found on that particular white fluid?
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 215. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 215?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 215?
State's Exhibit 215 is BCI item number 8.
And what is BCI item number 8?
BCI item number 8 is a knife multi-tool.
If you would, please open up State's Exhibit 215. And that also that's an item that was received by BCI?
Yes, it was.
And what sort of testing were you asked to do on the Swiss Army knife or the multi-tool knife?
The multi-tool knife was looked at for the presence of potential bodily fluids, specifically for blood. Each area that was tested on this multi-tool knife was negative, so no blood was identified. There were 4 different swabbings taken from different areas of the knife.
So let me stop you there. With the court's permission, I'd ask for the witness to be able to step down and show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where, in particular, the knife was swabbed.
Permission is granted.
Or if you prefer, if you want to do it on the overhead, either, whatever one is easiest for you.
Go over there.
Whichever is easier for you, yes.
Okay. So there were 4 areas of the knife that were were swabbed. One of the swabbings was taken from this broken blade here. That is BCI item number 8.3. There was a swabbing of the handle, the red portion. That was BCI item number 8.2. There's a swabbing from the interior portion where this blade would have rested inside, and that is BCI item number 8.4. And then there's another blade that was also swabbed as BCI item number 8.1.
Okay. And all the opinions I'm about to ask you about, based upon your training, education, and experience, and with a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. Okay, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And what findings did you make on States Exhibit 215, BCI item number 8, the Swiss Army knife, or the multi-tool knife?
Yes. So BCI items number 8.1 and 8.3, the swabbing from the blade as well as the swabbing from the broken blade, the DNA profile obtained from those items was not of sufficient quality for comparison due to insufficient data. So simply put, there just wasn't enough DNA present to make any conclusions regarding that DNA profile. The DNA profile from the swabbing of the handle had the same conclusions. There was not enough DNA present to make any conclusions regarding the source of that DNA. And lastly, BCI item number 8.4, which is the swabbing from the interior knife from the broken blade where that blade sits deep down inside. The DNA profile from that sample was a mixture of DNA profiles. So again, more than one contributor is contributing to that DNA profile. The major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Broussard. Mr. Madden is not the major DNA profile, and there is additional DNA present, but I cannot make any conclusions regarding who could be the source of that DNA as well.
Is that an unusual place to find DNA on a knife to you?
In my opinion, yes, somewhat, because as you saw, it's a very hard place to even get your fingers down into. However, if someone's handling the knife on a regular basis and opening and closing that piece, their DNA might be transferred there.
States Exhibit. States Exhibit 217, item number 9. If you wouldn't mind telling us what that is, ma'am.
Yes, BCI item number 9 is a shirt.
You go ahead and take the shirt off for me, please. And what sort of tests were conducted by BCI on this particular item?
BCI would have looked at the stains on the shirt and tested those to see if they would be presumptive positive for blood. And there was also a sample collected from the stain to be potentially sent forward for DNA analysis.
And what findings were there on the shirt?
The stain from the shirt was presumptive positive for blood. The sample that was collected was not sent forward for DNA analysis.
These samples, there's no bombshells in this. We know whose blood was where and where it should be and where we will find it because of what happened at the scene. I'm going to mute them just for a second to tell you that tonight on the podcast, which starts in 1 hour, you're going to have your very own weatherman. Thomas has been tracking this storm for quite a while. We're going to track this because it's still a couple hours from, I guess, officially making landfall. So we're going to be tracking that during the podcast as well. So if you want to, he's got maps, he's got all the tools and stuff like that. Please join us for that. We're going to do our podcast, but it will also have a weather updates as things go on.
231?
Yes.
And what do you recommend?
It has the unique BCI
portal to the
barcode with
podcast
the
as well.
BCI item number and case number.
It seems, especially because the situation where they found him doing CPR on her, there's no need to DNA test anything.
231. Do you recognize any of the markings on this as well?
Yes, this has the BCI item number as well as our unique case number, as well as the individual's initials and date of when the samples were collected.
Okay. And would an analysis have been done on this particular item, States Exhibit 231?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to identify any DNA profiles contained on States Exhibit 231?
Yes.
And I assume that you would use the same procedures that you've outlined before?
Yes, I did.
And within, based upon your training, education, and experience, and based upon a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what results did you conclude as to whose DNA is contained in States Exhibit 231?
The sample was presumptive positive for blood. The DNA profile was a mixture of DNA profiles. The major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Broussard. Mr. Madden cannot be, Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there's also additional DNA present that I cannot make any comparisons or conclusions regarding who might have deposited that DNA.
Ooh, defense is going to jump on that one.
So it could be Mr. Vans, it could not be Mr. Vans.
That's correct. I can't make any conclusions.
States Exhibit 232. And what is States Exhibit 232?
States Exhibit 232 is BCI item number 12, which are swabs from a green jacket, the left lower region.
And again, you recognize the label that's on States Exhibit 232?
Yes.
Item number 12, lab number 22-19832?
Correct.
And the item is contained within States Exhibit 232. Do you recognize any of the markings on this?
Yes. Again, it has the BCI lab number, item number, and initials and date from the individual that collected the samples.
And this is an item that you would have tested or analyzed as part of your duties with BCI?
Yes, that's correct.
And were you able to develop any, or able to were you able to develop any DNA profiles?
Yes.
All right, and then again, based upon your training, education, and experience with a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what conclusions did you come to?
The DNA profile, the sample from that item was presumptive positive for blood, and the DNA profile obtained from that item was a mixture of two individuals. The major DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Broussard, and the minor DNA profile is consistent with Mr. Madden.
And what statistical probabilities did you come up with on those?
For the major DNA profile, the estimated frequency of occurrence of that major DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. As far as the minor DNA profile, the estimated frequency of occurrence of the minor DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals.
Thank you. States Exhibit 233. What is States Exhibit 233?
States Exhibit 233 is BCI item number 13, which are swabs from a green jacket, the middle left region.
Okay. I assume you recognize the label that's on 233?
Yes.
Item number 13, lab number 22-19832?
That's correct.
And do you recognize any of the markings that are within States Exhibit 233?
Yes, this contains the similar markings of the BCI case number, item number, and initials of the individual who collected the samples.
And what sort of analysis was done on States Exhibit 233?
These samples were tested for the potential to have blood. They were presumptive positive for blood, and no DNA analysis was performed on these items.
In States Exhibits 234 and 235. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do.
And what are those items?
States Exhibit 234 is BCI item number 15, which is swabs from a gray button shirt, the lower left edge. States Exhibit 235 is BCI item number 16, which is swabs from a gray button shirt, right sleeve front.
And do you recognize the markings on States Exhibit 234?
Yes.
You got item 15, lab number 22-19832?
Yes.
And do you recognize the markings on what is contained within States Exhibit 234?
Yes.
And what markings do you recognize?
Yes, there is the BCI case number, item number, as well as analyst initials.
And were you able to analyze States Exhibit 234 and attempt to ID any DNA profiles?
Yes.
Okay. And based upon your training, education, and experience within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your findings in regards to States Exhibit 234?
The sample from the swabs was presumptive positive for blood. There was a mixture of DNA profiles on this item. The major profile is consistent with Ms. Broussard. Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there's also additional DNA present that I cannot make any conclusions on.
And what is the statistical analysis on States Exhibit 234?
The estimated frequency of occurrence of the major DNA profile from the swabs from the gray button shirt lower left edge is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals.
And I know you've already identified States Exhibit 235. This is the one that needs to be opened. This is
It's open.
is it? Okay. Hold on. I thought I'd opened it. On States Exhibit 235, again, do you recognize any of the labels on this?
Yes, it has the BCI barcode on it.
Item number 16, lab number 22-19832?
Correct.
And do you recognize any of the markings on what is contained within States Exhibit 235?
Yes, it has the BCI lab number, item number, as well as analyst initials and date.
And were you able to analyze this particular item in regards to trying to identify any DNA profiles?
Yes.
And again, the same procedures that you've been talking about throughout your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. And based upon your training, education, and experience to within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your conclusions?
The sample from the swabs from the gray button shirt, right sleeve front, they were presumptive positive for blood. There is a mixture of DNA present on that item. The major DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Broussard. Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there's also additional DNA present that I cannot make any conclusions regarding the contributors.
And lastly, I believe there was one other item that you were asked to look at. States Exhibit 216. And what are we looking at inside of States Exhibit 216?
States Exhibit 216 is BCI item number 17, which is a cigarette.
And was that an item that was tested by BCI?
Yes.
And based upon your training, education, and experience to within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your findings in regards to the cigarette?
There were two samples collected from the cigarette butt. One was a swabbing of the cigarette, and the second was a cutting from the paper that would have come into contact with someone's mouth if they were to smoke that cigarette. The swabbing from the cigarette butt was not sent forward for DNA analysis. However, the cutting was. The DNA profile from the cutting was consistent with Mr. Madden.
Was there a statistical probability on that one as well?
Yes, the estimated frequency of occurrence of that DNA profile from the cutting of the cigarette butt is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. And I should also mention that Ms. Broussard is excluded from that sample.
Ms. Daly, I think I had you identify States Exhibits 239 and 240. So States Exhibit 239, is that a lab report that you would have generated?
Yes.
And the date of that report would be December 1st of 2022?
That's correct.
Okay. And then it's my understanding that at a later point, the cigarette was delivered to your lab for testing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's what would have made you generate the second report, which would have been 240, is that correct?
That's correct.
Because that would have contained the findings from the cigarette, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then explain the difference then between State's Exhibit 239 and 240.
State's Exhibit 239 would have included also items that were not examined, items that had DNA profiles that were developed that were not sufficient for comparison, and it
We
also
have about
contained
40
all
minutes
of,
left of
the
testimony
bodily fluid
today.
testing within that report. Those are things that would not be carried forward to a second report.
Okay. So
If I
240 is kind of a
if I
summary,
pass the two counter
in
to you
date
guys, I will
for
do
State's Exhibit
1.5,
240
but it's going to be
February
fast.
21st, 2024. So State's Exhibit 240 would essentially contain a summary of 239 with the addition of the findings in regards to the cigarette.
Yes.
There we go.
I can have one more.
We're already we're done. We're on cross-examination, I think. He keeps his gloves on as he drinks from his mug. I was over on Brandy's channel asking how you can tell when a hurricane's all grown up. But apparently it just becomes apparent.
I have another question, Chairman.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. Daly.
Good morning.
I have a few questions for you. I want to first, I know Mr. Burris went through everything with you, but I just want to kind of summarize if I can real quick with you. So you still have your report with you?
Yes.
So I want to start just to kind of go back over some of this, make sure I'm clear. So you analyzed the left-hand fingernail clippings of Rochelle, correct?
Yes.
And you were not able to make any conclusions of whether Toby Madden's DNA was within her left-hand fingernail clippings. Is that what you said?
He is not the major contributor, and I can't make any conclusions regarding the additional DNA that is on the item. So I can't include, exclude, or even call it conclusive.
Okay. And is the same, is that the same for her right-hand fingernail clippings as well?
Yes.
You were given two knives, correct?
That's correct.
One of the knives, it looks like item 7, no blood on that knife at all. Am I reading that right?
The sample from the blade was tested for potential blood, and that was negative.
So did you get just a swab, or did you get the actual knife to look at?
We had the knife.
Okay. But one of the folding knife, no blood on, just to come back to that, right?
No blood on the blade.
Okay. And then the knife, your item 8 says knife, multi-tool. Is that what you stood in front of the jury with?
Yes.
There was no blood found on that, correct?
Yes. The samples that were tested for blood were the swabbing from the blade, the swabbing from the broken blade, as well as the interior knife from where the broken blade sits.
Right. Well, my question was there was no blood detected on any of that, correct?
There was no blood identified on the samples I mentioned.
Okay. But you did say that looks like item 8.4, there was some of Rochelle's DNA on the interior knife from broken blade. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, the major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Broussard.
But what you found was not blood, or what kind of DNA was it?
The sample was negative when we did our presumptive test for blood. So as far as where that DNA came from, I can't conclusively say. It could have been from skin cells. It could have been from some other bodily fluid that wasn't tested.
Okay. That was what I wanted to know because, and I'm probably not saying it right, but sometimes when we find DNA, it could be my blood, it could be my skin cells, it could be sweat, saliva. But item 8.4
What else
that you
could it be,
tested
sir?
doesn't have blood.
Correct. There was no blood identified.
So if there's any DNA of Rochelle, it's some other form, like skin cells or whatever, other than blood. That's fair.
Yes, I can't say what though.
Right. Do you have any knowledge that this knife that was found was actually inside Rochelle's purse?
Yes, I did know that.
Okay. Because you said it would be unusual to find DNA on that part of the knife, but you would agree with me it wouldn't be unusual if it's a knife that's in someone's purse that they may use almost every day, correct?
I would be more expectant to find her DNA on like the exterior of the knife, so when we swap the handle, I would expect to find her DNA there. This is kind of just an odd place to find DNA since it's really far deep down inside and you can't theoretically like even stick your finger down it.
Right. Have you ever used the multi-purpose tool? Did you ever use one of those?
Rarely.
Well, when you saw it, do you see that there's little slivers in the top of each blade where you almost have to put your fingernail on to pull the blade up? Did you see that?
Yes.
So you're saying it would be uncommon if I'm opening that up, using my fingernail and my skin cells to pull the blade up, that it would be uncommon for my skin cells to be within the knife?
Not necessarily, like, I would expect your skin cells to be on that portion where you're contacting it and pulling it up. But this sample was taken from deep down in that groove.
Okay. Have you ever used a knife to clean your fingernail beds out?
Not a knife, no.
I understand.
It's the wrong
but
tool.
Not everybody does things the
every
same way.
guy's
You would
like,
agree
yep,
with me on that?
That's true,
that.
yes.
Could you, I know you're not going to do that, but could you use the end of a knife such as what you looked at just to kind of clean your nail beds?
You could.
Right?
Clean my fingernails with my comb. How about that?
Also, with regards to, I think it was the bright green shirt, you said that was positive for blood, but the steps weren't taken then to determine exactly whose blood that was. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, item 12 is a green jacket, and that's one of the pieces that you analyzed. And you said that Toby Madden was a minor DNA profile. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
For item 12? Do we know what DNA that is that you found there? Is that skin cells? Is it sweat, saliva, blood? Do we know what that was?
The sample that was collected was presumptive positive for blood. I can't say whether his DNA profile was as a result of his skin cells being deposited on that item or if it was also his blood.
And the clothes you have on today, the clothes I have on, every time I touch my coat here, touch my tie, I'm depositing DNA and cells all over my clothing, correct?
That's correct.
So it's not unusual for a piece of clothing to have someone's own DNA on it, right?
Correct.
Judge, can I have a minute? Sure. No further questions.
Redirect.
I just have one redirect question. There was some of the DNA that you tested that you were not able to make any conclusions as to whose DNA it is that correct?
That's correct.
And why would that be?
It could be for a couple reasons. The amount of DNA that was recovered from that item doesn't give a reliable enough DNA profile, so it doesn't meet our standards for comparison. It could have also been the quality of that DNA profile doesn't lend itself for comparison, or there could have been a number of individuals contributing to that DNA profile, making it also not sufficient for comparison.
Thank you. What else, Sean?
No recross, Mr.
Yeah, you sit down. Thank you.
Council Brooks.
Sure.
All right, we might be all done with the DNA expert. I think we might be all done for the day. I just swabbed the like button on the YouTube channel, and I came back. It was quite interesting. I came back with 454 different profiles, and I'm just matching them up right now. It looks like we've got a few people that are not showing up, but I think some of the DNA was left over from a previous stream. Guilty here, says Laura. While we're waiting for them to come back, Brandy is going back inside. She's completely drenched. Her phone's all wet. Hair's soaked. She was wearing a little hoodie, but it was destroyed. Just soaked. Out on the beach. Brandy's awesome. We love her. She's going to stay safe. She's up high. Storm surge can't get her. She's in a sturdy building. She'll probably lose power or internet, but I think she'll be okay. She's confident that she'll be all right.
Statement calls next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state will call Tanya Cook.
Tanya Cook, next witness. If this is still DNA, we're keeping it at 1.5.
With this witness, she does not wish to be recorded. I'm sorry.
Another witness.
Right. You left something on the project.
Another witness does not want to be recorded. What is this? Is this Burger King? There's that statue. I think it's 4 feet tall. I really think it is.
Good morning, ma'am. I appreciate you being here. Would you please state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Tanya Cook, T-O-N-I-A-C-O-O-K.
Do you know an individual by the name of Rochelle Broussel?
Yes,
How do you know Rochelle Broussel?
we were friends.
How long have you known Rochelle Broussel?
And we were when we were younger, and then we played ball against each other, and then as we got older, because of Toby.
Okay. Are you a little nervous being here?
Yeah. We need that microphone.
Yes.
For the witness.
May I approach?
Yes, thank you.
We're having some difficulty hearing this. So.
Okay.
Let me, if I can ask that last question again. How is it that you know Rochelle Broussel?
We were friends.
Is that better? How long have you guys been friends?
When we were younger, we played ball against each other, and then probably 5 years
Okay.
as adults.
Right. And do you know an individual by the name of Toby Madden?
Yes.
You see Toby Madden in court today?
Yes.
Would you please point to him and describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it is he's wearing?
That man right there.
Dress shirt.
Because he's the guy.
No, that's a record to reflect the witness has identified the defendant, Toby Madden.
The record will say reflect.
Okay. And ma'am, I want to direct your attention back to around Christmas time of 2021. Did you have contact with Toby Madden around that time?
Yes.
Did you hear him say anything about Rochelle Broussard?
Yes.
What did he say about Rochelle Broussard? Objection.
Overruled.
You can answer, ma'am.
He said that he would cut her head off, put it in her mom's lap, so the whole family would have to suffer.
Thank you, Judge.
Cross-examination?
Whoa. That escalated quickly. These attorneys bending the microphone far away from them, so we can't hear.
That's pretty quick. Are you Toby's cousin?
Yes.
What makes you think that?
Our grandmas are sisters.
What makes you think that?
What grandma? What's her name?
My grandma Venerable and his grandma, they were Molly and Polly Venerable.
Yeah.
Or Croucher or something, I don't know the last name.
Did you get involved in this case where someone reached out to you, or did you call down the police department?
I called them.
This statement that you just say you heard, you said he was going to cut off her head and put it in his mother's lap?
Not his mother's, her mother's. That's before she passed away.
Okay. Who was around when he said that?
My daughter, my husband. He said it over and over again. It wasn't just one time. It was over and over again.
When you say over and over again, you talking about just that day?
No, just different days.
Okay. So I'm assuming you called the police, right?
When he said that?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
All right. You said he said this in the presence of your daughter. What is her name?
Haley Cook.
And you said it was in the presence of your husband?
Yes.
What's his name?
Krista Warren Cook.
Where were you at when this was said?
At my house.
What were you guys doing?
Toby would sell clothes and shoes, and
Were you selling clothes and shoes inside your house?
he would bring them in his truck, and I would buy shoes from him or clothes, whatever.
Okay, so when I asked you what you were doing that day when he said this, you're buying clothes and shoes from him?
Yeah, it's depending on what day it was. Like,
Well,
like I said, he
I'm
has
asking
said
you
it
about
over
the day
and
that
over
he made
again.
the statement. What were you doing that day that he made this statement?
I don't know. We were maybe sitting on the couch. I don't know exactly. We were talking, sitting there.
You know what day it was?
No.
Day of the week?
No, because he said it quite frequent. It was either he was going to stab her to death or cut her head off and put it in her mom's lap.
Where was he at inside your house when he said this?
It would be like right next to me on the couch.
All right, so he was inside your house.
Yes.
Right? Your husband was there?
Yes.
Were you drinking that day?
I don't drink or do drugs.
Your husband does, though, right?
Yes.
Was he drinking or using drugs that day?
I don't know.
Well, how long have you been married to him?
22 years.
You can't tell us whether or not your husband's drunk after 22 years of being with him or on drugs?
He possibly was on drugs that day.
Did you ever take Toby to the hospital to see Rochelle's mom?
No.
Never?
Never.
Did you ever take Toby anywhere to go see Rochelle's mother?
Never.
Okay. Did you ever see Toby around her mother? Were you able to observe the two of them together?
No.
Did you ever see at your house Rochelle hit Toby with a stick?
Well, it was a thing that you put up underneath the doorknob to keep people from coming in. He had come to the house. Rochelle was there, and I could tell by his knock that it was him. I was like, that's Toby, Rochelle. And so she got up and answered the door, and he had the stick, and he hit her with it.
Oh, he hit her?
Yep.
Did she ever hit him with it?
She took it back she got it from him and hit him with it.
The stick was put up, Exhibit 66, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, State's Exhibit 66,
Sorry.
if you wouldn't mind.
This is the thing that the defendant wanted to talk about. She hit me with the stick.
That's just not Mr. Holmes.
Can you see, is there a screen in front of you that has that, ma'am?
Yeah.
Does that look like the stick that Rochelle would have hit Toby with?
No.
It doesn't?
No, it would have already. It was like silver.
I see nothing. Oh.
What color is this object?
I can't tell the color of that. That's not it.
That's like Gandalf's staff.
You said this thing, whatever this that Rochelle used to hit Toby, was it metal?
Yes.
And you said it went under a door?
It was to help secure your door in your house. You stick it underneath your door. But Toby was the one that came and hit her with it first.
Right, but you're not denying that she then grabbed it and hit him, correct?
No, I'm not denying that. She did.
They had a really hot and cold relationship, didn't they?
Well, I mean, she was defending herself.
Is that a yes or no? Did they
Hot
have
and
a
cold relationship? Yeah, she was trying to get away from him, so it wouldn't be hot and cold anymore.
I understand that, and I'm not trying to disrespect that she's passed. I'm going by what you saw between these two, because the reality is on the day that she was stabbed, you don't know what happened inside that house, do you?
No,
but you do know that they have a rocky relationship, don't you?
Yes.
And you do know that she hit him with the stick, whether he used it first or she used it first. You've seen her hit him with the stick.
Yeah.
That goes under a door.
Yes.
That's your win? Wow.
Did you ever go as far as to tell the police that Toby pulled a gun on her?
No, I did not.
You didn't do that? Judge, can I have a second?
Sure.
No further questions.
Anything else?
There you are. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, you may step down. Thank you.
The counsel for
Yes, please.
On behalf of the state of Ohio, I believe this cook is released from the state's team.
Very well.
All right. That I don't think that was very good for the defense. That was bad. Oh, my goodness. We have about half an hour before the podcast starts. Remember, we are going to be tracking the storm for you. We have our very own weatherman. Weather Watch Thomas is going to be with us, letting us know what's happening, keeping us up to date on the latest and greatest. This storm has a potential of being a Category 5 when it hits land. Just for refresher, okay, Hurricane Katrina, which sort of arced around the other direction, it had a different curve to it, and then hit to the left of the Florida Panhandle. It stayed over. It got to a 5 and then downgraded to a 4 before it made landfall. So this is serious. It was a 4 when it hit, and we know what the damage we got from Katrina. Helene is a 4 now and growing. They're flying back into the eye of the storm right now to see if it's become a 5 or if it's going to become a 5 before it hits landfall. So Peter Tragos is also in the eye of the storm. They have prepared, and they're going to hunker down and ride it out. A lot of people have made that choice. Authorities in some areas are saying this is not survivable. Not survivable. Katrina did way more damage by their dams breaking. Yes, it was different. They have different infrastructure there that caused problems. I don't know.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press...
I didn't hear who's calling. Who is this?
It's me.
Hey,
I was
Donnie.
just wondering on the podcast, do we take phone calls there too?
I leave that up to Weather Watch. He takes the. He's going to make.
Okay,
the
and
rules
I
on
just
that
wanted to let you know everything is cool. Apparently, Brandy has no idea I was timed out. She had no idea. It's just, I guess, a one-sided thing with me.
Yeah.
And I dipped my toe in the water, and everything's fine in the chat.
Good.
You did good today.
I'll tell you, it was probably Amber who timed you out over there.
Yeah.
She's a mod over there.
Yeah. I gotta
Ladies and
figure
gentlemen,
this
it's
out.
important to
I don't have
understand that the
enough
state
time,
has
but-
presented its last witness to you. So at this time, we need to take care of some business outside of your hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and release you a little bit early today so that we
State
can
just
take care of that.
rested.
We'll come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and proceed from there, okay? But please remember my recess instructions.
We're caught up. We're caught up. Tomorrow morning they're going to come back and it's on to defense. We're going to have possibly a Friday closing. Depends what happens for evidence on the defense side, but it looks like that's the state's last witness. The other Jules, thank you very much. Glad we could catch up today. Yeah. Amber's not confessing, but Amber's a mod over with Brandy as well. And, yeah. Amber, I'm just saying, I love Donnie, but I can see the time when he might get a timeout or two. You know, he likes to find the boundaries. What time did they say in the morning?
Okay, please be seated. So the jurors have been excused from the courtroom, and at this time, would you like to take out these exhibits?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
So I believe State's Exhibits 1 through...
I think we might skip this. 9 in the morning, that's 10 Eastern,
I think
right?
1 through 206 have all already been indicated.
And that's what my recollection is as well. However, there is no Exhibit 177, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that takes us to 207, and we'll go from there.
So, Your Honor, I believe the coroner's report is a self-authenticated document. It is certified. I think it comes in that way without any testimony.
Any objection?
Hold on one second.
Okay.
I was just catching up,
Sure.
make sure I didn't have it. Yeah, you're talking about 207?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that'll be admitted. And then I have 208, 209, 210, and 211 being admitted, 212 being identified but not admitted. That is the wallet.
I am asking for its admission and/or photographs, one way or the other. I know it's a wallet, and I think there's under a driver's license and stuff like that. So whatever the court's preference is, I can just.
You said are there photos of it?
No, I said we could either introduce that as an exhibit where we can take photos of it. It's going to be 212.
Some of your ID's probably expired. Your driver's license? Yeah. You can send a wallet back. I was just making sure there's.
And then there's also dollar bills, a couple dollar bills.
No, it's fine. I can go back.
All right, so we'll get that.
For like Social Security stuff, nothing.
All right.
And I'm glad we didn't skip the train. We have some toots here at the end.
2022.
That's fine. The wallet can
All right,
go back.
we'll admit that. And then I have 213 as being admitted, 214 as being identified but not admitted. That is the black book bag.
I'd ask for its submission now. And probably.
Any objections to the book bag?
No.
Okay,
And
that'll
I'd
be
like
admitted.
to ask your bailiff, I've gone through it, but if the bailiff would like to go through and make sure there's, I don't believe there's anything in here that's harmful or anything, but.
If you would do that, Mr. Halcom. Okay. All right. So then the next, I have 215, 216, 217, and 218 is being admitted, 219 and 220 being identified but not admitted. That would be the gray hat and the Kroger bag.
I'd ask for this to be admitted.
No objection.
Okay, those will be admitted. And then it appears there is no Exhibit 221.
Correct.
Okay. So 222 I have as being identified but not admitted.
I'd ask for it to be admitted.
No objection.
Okay, that'll be admitted. And then I have 223, 24, 224, 225, 226, 227 is being admitted. And I do not have 228, 229, or 230 being identified or admitted.
Correct. There will be no exhibits there.
Okay.
What were those again? I'm sorry.
228, 229, and 230.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, got
All
it.
right, and then we've got 231, I have 231 as being admitted, and 232, 233, 234, and 235 as being identified but not admitted.
It has to be admitted, Your Honor.
No objection.
Okay, those will be admitted. And then 236, I do not have a record of that being identified or admitted.
Correct.
Okay. I've got 237 and 238 as being admitted, 239 and 240 as being identified but not admitted.
I'd ask that they be admitted.
No objection.
Those will be admitted. I have 241 as admitted, 242 and 243 as being identified but not admitted.
I'd ask that they be admitted.
No objection.
This will be admitted. And then I have 244, 245, 246, 247, 248, 249, and 250 is all being admitted.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, are there any other exhibits that we have not addressed?
Nothing other than what we discussed. No other exhibits other than what we discussed at some point.
So with those exhibits being admitted, is the state going to have any other evidence?
The state has no other witnesses to present, no other evidence to submit and state arrest.
Very well. And of course, we'll let you do that in front of the jury tomorrow.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, now that the state has rested Mr. Wilder, is there anything you'd like to put on the record?
Judge, at this time, we would make a Rule 29 motion for acquittal on all charges. I just argue that the state, even construing evidence in the light most favorable to them, have not provided sufficient evidence on all the elements of all the charges presented. Thank you, Justice General.
Anything that the state wishes to put on the
I
record?
believe we have put sufficient evidence forward to warrant the case go to the trial fact.
All right, well, the court has carefully listened to the evidence, and considering Rule 29
30-second
and the
motion to
appropriate
acquit.
standard in that rule, the court is going to respectfully deny the motion.
Yep.
Okay, anything else
That
anyone would like to
fast.
take up today before I take up a few items?
No, Your Honor.
Not at this time, Judge. Obviously, I'm discussing with Mr. Madden his case and whether he's going to testify or not. And once that decision is made, that will obviously be something that I'm not sure what this county does or you yourself, Your Honor, but that may have to go on the record.
Very well.
There's nothing other than that.
All right. Well, that brings me to the jury instructions that I wanted to discuss with you. And in those instructions, we have started out by saying that Mr. Madden would not testify, but certainly we will amend that if, in fact, he chooses to exercise his right to testify. So I'll have that language prepared to go either way based upon what happens with the case as we proceed. Other than that, Mr. Burris, Mr. Hahn, do either of you have any comments, corrections, or requests to the draft jury instructions that I have provided?
I don't believe so at this time, Your Honor. We don't know what.
Sure, and I understand we probably have to conference again, but I just want to have them in the best position possible so that they're easy for us to modify and alter as we proceed. Did you have anything that you wanted to change or add, Mr. Wilder?
Judge, I don't see anything with what's printed out here. However, based on some of the testimony, there is a potential that we may be requesting an instruction on voluntary manslaughter. I will certainly find something as a formal record, but other than what was printed out, I don't see anything in there at this point. But if anything additional like that instruction is requested, I will certainly file something, and obviously we'll get to the court's attention.
All right. Well, then I will leave them unchanged at this point, and if the defense chooses to present a case after that, we'll conference again and see if we need to make any other changes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we recess for the day?
I assume it would be the court's intention to try and get this, this case to the jury by sometime tomorrow. We'll stay as late as we're going to stay.
If we are still presenting evidence or doing closing arguments, or if we're not finished with those things, I would anticipate asking the jurors if they would like to stay or not. If we're in deliberations, likewise, I will ask them if they wish to stay. So I'm largely going to leave it up to the jurors. So if you would be prepared to stay past business hours, if that's how they choose to proceed.
Oh, could be a late night
Anything
on
else?
Friday.
I don't have anything right now.
All right. We'll see you all tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and they are done. The judge is off the bench. We won't have any audio, so anything that does happen here with the defendant, we won't get to hear. This is the first time I've seen you with a yes. I put a couple yeses up today. Put a couple yeses. They're discussing strategy for tomorrow, and I don't think they have one. All right, he's about to object to being recorded here at this point. So, he's like, I'm not going to get up there. I'm not going to get up there. No, I'm not going to testify. Why would I do that? You get up there. You say it for me. He's like, I can't. I'm your lawyer. I can ask questions, but I can't testify. Well, fine, I can fire you, and I'll do it myself. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm doing as good as you. Yeah, anyway, I don't know what he's saying. I'm just making it up. All right, we are going to... he hands a note to his attorney on the way out and gives him a couple thumbs up. There you go. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Josh, you did a fantastic job. Fantastic job as your first day as a moderator. Not very seldom, not very often do we take new mods on, and Josh might be the last one of the year that we take on. It just depends how things go. So thank you very much, Karen. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Hope you have a good one. We have a podcast coming up in a little under 23 minutes. I think he's not going to testify. You're doing a horrible job. I could have done better. Yeah, a lot. He doesn't like having an attorney. He wanted to go pro se twice. He tried, and the judge wouldn't let him. Wisely. All right. Let's see. We have a podcast going up in just a little bit. I'm going to portal you guys over to it, but just know that we're going to be tracking the storm a little bit, so we'll have some storm updates in the podcast as well as some fun stuff, because we don't want all bad news, because this storm is all bad news. But we'll be going live on the podcast right here on this channel. Click the like button. That's always free. It's nice. Also click the subscribe button and then ring the bell. That way you won't miss any of the lives that we do, as long as YouTube upholds their end of the bargain, which we have yet to see them do, and notify everybody when we go live. So we'll be live at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern time. That's in about 22 minutes. So I've got very little time to do a sound check with Thomas, who I think is already ready to go. Yeah, I think we're going to be there. All right, tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love. Smile at someone. Make their day just a little bit better. And please stay safe till we go live again in about 20 minutes. You guys have a good night. Thank you all. It's been a lot of fun. We are caught up. We're caught up in the Ohio versus Madden trial. So Be good to each other. We'll see you in a little bit. Bye-bye.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
You're talking about stuff that is not real.